Okay, so, we've been diving deep into some pretty heavy stuff lately, and today is no exception.
Yeah, definitely not lighthearted material today.
You, our listeners, have sent us, well, a bunch of articles about this whole situation in El Salvador. It's about their prisons, right? And how that's all tied up with illegal immigration from the US. Specifically, folks with criminal records, it seems.
Right, and the sources you've shared, they're pretty intense. It's a bleak picture they paint of what's happening inside those prisons. And there's this unexpected angle about how it might be discouraging illegal immigration from the US.
So let's just lay it all out there right from the start. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into these El Salvadorian prisons, what's really going on in there. Then we'll try to wrap our heads around this reported connection to fewer people with criminal histories coming into the U.S. illegally. And of course, we have to talk about the controversies, the legal questions, the whole nine yards.
Absolutely. And as always, our conversation is anchored in the information from those news articles you sent. We're sticking to the details, the claims, the narratives within those sources.
Got it. So, first things first, right? El Salvador's prisons. The articles you sent, they don't hold back. Severe overcrowding. It's like the first thing that jumps out.
Oh, yeah, that's a consistent theme throughout these articles. They talk about cells designed for a certain number of people, but then you see reports of like triple that number crammed in.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable.
And, that kind of crowding, it's just a breeding ground for all sorts of problems. Disease, I mean, how could it not be?
Right. Sanitation goes out the window in those situations. The articles mention a lack of basic hygiene, just, the bare minimum for health.
But it's not just the lack of space. It's the violence, right, that seems to be just baked into the whole environment.
Yeah. That's a huge element.
Hmm.
You got these rival gangs constantly clashing. And then on top of that, you have reports of guards, the people who are supposed to maintain order, they're being accused of brutality themselves.
Oh.
So yeah, it's, living in a constant state of fear. You never know what's coming next.
Yeah, and the articles really highlight this sense of, like, chaos within the prisons. It's not just the overcrowding, it's the feeling that the gangs are running the show, that they have so much power.
There's definitely that sense that things are spiraling out of control. The article suggests that in some cases, the authorities might not even have full control. And then you have inmates who are essentially forced to align themselves with a gang just for basic protection. It's a survival tactic.
Which just makes the whole problem worse, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It just perpetuates that cycle of violence. And when you add in the lack of basic necessities, the articles talk about insufficient food, clean water. It's just a recipe for disaster.
And that takes us to the human rights concerns. That's the really heartbreaking part of all of this. People are being denied their basic human dignity.
Right. And these aren't just abstract concepts. The articles make it clear that these conditions are causing real suffering. They talk about the severe psychological toll, the mental health issues that stem directly from this environment of constant stress, fear, and deprivation. It's quite disturbing.
Yeah, no wonder international organizations are up in arms. They've condemned these conditions, haven't they?
They have, yeah. The articles mention repeated calls for reform, citing these human rights abuses. It's definitely on the radar of the international community. But, the question is, are those calls being heeded? Are things actually changing on the ground?
Right, right. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting, right? Because these sources, they link these horrific prison conditions to, well, a drop in crime, at least within El Salvador. They're saying it's one of the safest countries in Central America now.
It's a surprising twist. The argument seems to be that the sheer brutality of the prison system, it acts as a deterrent. Like, people are so terrified of ending up there that they're less likely to commit crimes in the first place.
And then you add in this whole partnership with the U.S.
Yeah, the transfer of people who are in the U.S. illegally and have committed crimes, they're being sent back to El Salvador.
And get this, some of the articles claim that the prospect of ending up in those prisons, it's actually causing some people to self-deport, to leave the U.S. on their own.
It's like the fear factor is so strong that it's actually influencing migration patterns. It's a pretty unconventional approach, you have to admit.
So how did we get here? How did El Salvador's prisons become, the poster child for everything that's wrong with the prison system?
Well, the articles point to a history of turmoil, of neglect. You have to understand, El Salvador went through a brutal civil war. Then you had this surge in gang violence, and the prison system just wasn't equipped to handle any of it.
So they just got overwhelmed.
Exactly. The infrastructure, the resources, they were just inadequate from the start. And then, as the prison population exploded, well, things just spiraled out of control.
It's like instead of being places of rehabilitation, they almost became breeding grounds for more crime.
It's a tragic irony, right? The articles even suggest that the prisons might be contributing to the very problem they're supposed to be solving. And it's not like this happened overnight. It was a gradual process, years of prioritizing punishment over actual rehabilitation.
They focused on being tough, but they didn't address the root causes.
Exactly. And the result, according to these sources, is one of the deadliest prison systems in the world. A system where human rights are routinely violated, where violence reigns supreme. And these sources, they don't just present the big picture, they also give us these really powerful glimpses into the human cost of all this.
Yeah, like that story about the young inmate, the one who was attacked just because someone misidentified him.
That's the one that really gets to me. It just shows you how arbitrary the violence is. You can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's it. And it's a constant fear. Every day you're wondering, is this going to be the day it happens to me?
And then there was that huge riot, right? Dozens of people died.
Yeah, that was a turning point. It put El Salvador's prisons on the map, so to speak. It forced the international community to pay attention to what was happening there.
And then you have the personal stories of the inmates themselves. These stories, they're filled with fear, violence, despair. It's a stark reminder that behind those statistics, those numbers, there are real human beings, each with their own story.
And their families, too. It's easy to forget that these people have loved ones on the outside who are also suffering. But amidst all the darkness, there are also those flickers of hope.
Yeah, like that story about the former inmate who turned his life around and now helps others.
That's important to remember. It shows that even in the most desperate of circumstances, change is possible. That even someone who's been through the horrors of El Salvador's prisons can come out the other side and make a positive impact.
Okay, but let's be real, right? This whole situation, the prisons, the transfer policy, it's all very controversial.
Absolutely. And the articles acknowledge that. They point to the condemnations from international organizations, the ethical and legal questions surrounding the transfer of individuals to such a brutal environment.
It's like you're trying to solve one problem, illegal immigration, but you might be creating another one, right?
That's the dilemma. And it raises all sorts of legal questions, too. Due process? The rights of individuals being transferred? I mean, these are fundamental issues.
And just to be clear, right, we're not taking sides here. We're presenting the information as it's laid out in these articles.
We're giving you the facts, the different perspectives.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to you, the listener, to form your own opinion.
So, to recap, we've taken a deep dive into El Salvador's prisons. We've seen the overcrowding, the violence, the human rights abuses. We've explored this unusual link between these conditions and a decrease in illegal immigration from the U.S. And we've talked about the historical and systemic factors that have led to this crisis, as well as the very real controversies surrounding it.
And we've emphasized the human element, the individuals caught in this system, their stories, their struggles. It's a complex and disturbing issue, one that doesn't have easy answers.
So here's something for you to ponder as you go about your day. Think about the interplay between crime and punishment, between national policies and individual lives. What are the ethical implications of using a prison system like this as a deterrent, as a tool to manage migration? What responsibilities do nations have in addressing these interconnected challenges? It's a lot to think about.
It really is, and we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some new perspectives to consider.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.